It's January, everybody, and that means we're right in the middle of it. High school hoop season here in South Dakota. And boy, there is a lot to catch up on over the last week. I'm Jason Andera, your host of the weekly show Inside the 605. You can check this out every Wednesday throughout the rest of the season. Let's get right into it. One of my favorite segments of the week, top performers. And we're going to start on the boys' side as senior guard Trevon Beckman of St. Mary's added another 30-point game to his resume this year. He has scored 30 now a couple of different times. He went for 30 in the Cardinals' 61-41 win over Elkton Lake Benton. Carter Craven of Winter makes his appearance on this list. He exploded Tuesday night. He scored 35 points in a 64-31 win over Bonham. Blake Elwine of Huron helped his team down top 5 Harrisburg last week with a 27-point performance. He did most of his damage in the fourth quarter and in overtime for Huron. How about Sam DeGroat of Lincoln? He continues to have a big year in AA. He led his number one team twice in scoring over the last 7 days with a 21-point performance against Aberdeen and then another 19 against Jefferson. He also grabbed 9 boards in each of those games. Isaac Gass of Dubrook, just a sophomore, but didn't play like it last Friday. He scored 33 points, chipped in 4 three-pointers, and he had a huge part in a high-scoring game against James Valley Christian. The Dolphins got the win, 81-78. How about Nick Hansen of Viborg Hurley? He has been strong and on this list several times over the last couple of years, but he came through huge last week. A 32-point, 13-rebound game against Hillsbeaver Creek. And then against Hansen, also put a 20-point game, almost a double-double with 9 rebounds. And against Alcester Hudson, very similar game, 22 points and an 8-rebound game for Nick Hansen out of Viborg Hurley, absolutely on fire. Spencer Karstens is another player on this week who put up a 30-point game. He did it Tuesday against Sioux Falls Lutheran in a 68-34 win. He also had 7 assists in that game. That's impressive. Eli Mercer and Sully Butts put the pedal to the metal with a 75-33 win Tuesday against Ipswich. He had a team-high 28 points in that game. How about Marvin Richard III out of Pine Ridge? He continues his torrid season. He had back-to-back 29-point games against St. Francis Indian and Hot Springs. To round out the list on the boys' side, Grant Wilkinson. He brought out 2 special games over the last week. He went for the rare 20-20. He goes for 22 points and 20 boards against Arlington, and then he follows it up with a 27-point game and 13 rebounds against Howard on Tuesday. They got a little revenge over the team that they lost to in the title game last year. So congratulations to Grant Wilkinson and all of the boys' game changers on this list. Now time to look at the girls' side. Plenty of more great performances to talk about. None better than Ashlyn Carlo Blunt. She's one of the reasons I've been voting for Makpia Luta as the top team in Class A lately. She scored 32 points, but she had almost enough for a quadruple-double, just a couple of assists and a couple of steals shy of getting the quadruple-double. What a game for her. And by the way, she had a couple other 20-point games last week, but for her, she's averaging 29 points per game. Not as big of a deal as the 32-point, almost quadruple-double. Addison Heinge of Wilmot, 39 points on Tuesday against Britton Hecla, and she grabbed 9 boards in the game. One of the more outstanding scorers that we probably don't talk enough about in this show, but Addison with a terrific Tuesday. Taziah Hawkins, she has been outstanding all season long. The junior put in a career-high 9 three-pointers against Avon last Thursday night. Hawkins and Ethan are set for a big week coming up. We're going to talk more about them later in the show. Jalen Huntemer had herself another big game, a 27-point game for her in a 56-39 win over Dual. How about Makpia Irving of ACDC? She had a 29-point game against Trip Delmont Armor. She and the rest of the team have had a terrific year at Andy Central Dakota Christian. Riley Peters had 2 big games back-to-back. She went 23 points and 17 boards against TDA and then followed it up with 26 points on Tuesday night against Parker. So back-to-back big performances for the sophomore. Cindy Terveen out of O'Gorman They had their biggest test in this long winning streak that they've had on Tuesday, and they passed with flying colors thanks to Sydney Terveen. She got a 24.4 assist game to help her team beat previously unbeaten Washington. So those AA numbers, maybe not as big as some of the A and B scores, but those are impressive at the AA level to get 20-point games against really good competition. Congratulations to all of those performers on the Game Changers list. If you see any Game Changers out there, make sure to email them to me, jason.andera@605sports.com, and we will try to get you included on our list each week. Time to do some rankings reaction, just a quick glide through all 6 classes of boys and girls basketball in South Dakota to make sure we don't miss any loose ends here. And let's start in boys AA. Lincoln moves up to number 1 after Mitchell takes their first loss of the year. Now they've taken the second loss since this poll has come out. Brandon Valley still sitting at 5-1. Their only loss to Jefferson earlier this year. Harrisburg did take that extra second loss, which makes them on the hot seat in the top 5 for next week, but they've got a tough enough schedule where if they do well, they should be able to stay in the top 5. And Spearfish still undefeated, the only other undefeated team. But we also have to mention the receiving votes. Washington O'Gorman, they played on Tuesday night. That was on Live Ticket TV, David Brown on the call, and it was a thriller. Went to double overtime. We had a chance at the end for Washington to get the win, but O'Gorman staves off the Warriors on the road and gets a huge win there. So watch for O'Gorman to possibly enter the top 5 next week. In Class A, after Hamlin and Sioux Falls Christian duel, just as we expected, Sioux Falls Christian 1, Hamlin number 2. Dakota Valley comes in at number 3, had a great showing at the border battle on Saturday, but then had a game Tuesday against West Central, and West Central They did a really good job, and this West Central team is one that's probably going to get a few more votes after that win that they had on Tuesday against Dakota Valley. Rapid City Christian still undefeated in the top 5, and they have a chance to really move up if they can do something special Saturday against Sioux Falls Christian. Lennox, just that one loss against Sioux Falls Christian. They are sitting pretty still in that top 5, and like I said, West Central with a good chance to move up after what they did. In Class B, Castlewood in at number 1. Number 1 votes going to St. Mary's. Those are the 2 teams right now trying to separate themselves from the rest of the pack, although Viborg Hurley has been really strong. Leola Frederick still yet to lose, a state tournament team from last year. That is a team we definitely need to watch as they start to play some tougher competition here in the next month. And then Howard took another loss after this 6-2 start, losing to DeSmet on Tuesday. I expect they'll probably take their turn outside the top 5, but that doesn't mean that they're not a competitive team. And then one of those teams, Wessington Springs, Freeman, or Woolsey Wessington, might have a chance to move up into the top 5, and there might be some others as well. Let's look at some rankings reaction from the girls' Class AA side. O'Gorman continues that winning streak. 34 games in a row now. O'Gorman has gotten the win, and what a performance they got, not only from Sydney Terveen, but Ruby Moore, who also put a 20-point game in, despite getting hurt during that game. So the Knights looking that part of number 1. Washington, even with that loss that they had Tuesday, is still a very solid team. Brandon Valley has a couple tests coming up, but they have only the 1 loss to O'Gorman earlier in the year. Stevens, they just have the 1 loss earlier in the year to Mitchell, but they are still a top 5 team. And then Spearfish looking to prove something here as their schedule gets really tough with Brandon Valley and Makpealuta coming up in the next 7 days. Class A, Sioux Falls Christian getting 14 first place votes, staying at number 1. Vermilion and Makpealuta play each other. That's going to be a great game for 2 and 3 next week. Dakota Valley, they played an undefeated Spirit Lake team last Saturday and beat them up pretty good. This is a really dangerous team, this Dakota Valley team, and their young players have really stepped up along with their senior Cameron Somerville. Hamlin, they lost to Sioux Falls Christian, but stay in that top 5, losing to the number 1 team. Sometimes won't get you knocked out, and some more contenders to watch as Wagner, Elk Point Jefferson, and Rapid City Christian all getting votes. In Class B, it's been Centerville all year. It's Centerville to start it out, at least before their tough battle against Ethan. We'll see how they do. Parkston, Lyman, Ethan, then tie for 5th with Del Rapids St. Mary's and Sanborn Central Woonsocket, 2 teams that are looking to make a mark. Right now it feels like that top 4 and the rest, but I like a lot of those contenders. Look how many people how many schools are getting votes. Andy Central Christian, Dakota Christian, Coleman Egan, Corsica Stickney, Kadoka finally got their first loss. Bennett County and Harding County all getting some respect in the polls. All right, time to talk to Ryan Deal. Every week we check in with the real deal. Well, Ryan, always a lot going on in high school, hoops especially. But last week we had a really good one, and you happened to be there. Hamlin, Sioux Falls Christian. This is really starting to develop as a pretty special rivalry, isn't it?
Absolutely. I went there and I covered the game, and I think my lead sentence was referring to it as a budding Class A rivalry. And right now, it definitely is. We talked last week about the history. I wrote about the history. They played 3 times last year. Of course, Hamlin came out on top and the one that mattered the most in the state championship. So a lot of buildup going into this game. There was a lot of people at the gym and everything. And it certainly, some people might look at the final score and think it kind of was a blowout, but it was right there going into the fourth quarter. It was there for the taking for either team. Kind of got away from Hamlin a little bit there at the end and everything, but I definitely anticipate that won't be the only time that those two teams face off this season. More likely they'll be playing again here upcoming at the DAC-12 NEC Clash in Madison. So certainly a game that a lot of build-up. Certainly I felt lived up to the hype, and just great players and great athletes on both sides of the court, and hopefully we get to see it again.
Yeah, I went back and watched it, and Hamlin led for most of the game, actually, into the second half until Sioux Falls Christian made their spurt. What do you think? What do you think they did better to take that game over?
Defensively, they were just kind of took it up a notch in that second half. First half, Hamlin hit 5 or 6 3-pointers, I believe it was. Second half, Hamlin only made 1 3-pointer, so they really locked down defensively on Hamlin and everything. And I just think kind of both teams have length and size and athleticism, but I just think in the second half, Sioux Falls Christians, their size, I think, was a little bit of the difference as well in that one.
Awesome, good stuff. Let's talk about one of the more unique tournaments we have here in South Dakota, the Jones County Invitational. So much history, and it means so much to those teams that are involved. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Jones County Invitational, this is the 57th annual Jones County Invitational. So it goes to show you there's a lot of history and tradition with that event. It's held in Myrtle every year. John Thune, who's from Myrtle, grew up playing in that tournament, has fond memories of that tournament. He tries to come back and make an appearance at that one. I've written stories about it in the past, and I grew up as a kid going to the Jones County Invitational, and I've covered it before. People have described it as like a scene from the movie Hoosiers, just a very small, old school gym, but they really pack in tight there in that little gym. It just makes for a fun environment and fun atmosphere. 3 days of basketball. All the teams are West River, so a lot of teams that are in the same conference, and they face off throughout the season anyway. So a lot of fun little rivalries going on and everything at Myrtle. So definitely a fun event, and I just kind of wanted to kind of shine a spotlight on that tournament and everything.
And we'll have some pictures, is that right, on 605 Sports?
Yep, absolutely. We'll have some coverage over there for first day and everything, and throughout the tournament and whatnot.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to that. Speaking of looking forward to, we always check in with you what you're looking forward to most about the next week of games. And there's a lot to pick from, but what did you narrow it down to for the boys and the girls?
Let's talk about the boys. Castlewood, the Rapid St. Mary's, number 1 and number 2 in Class B. At least that's their ranking right now. I got to anticipate that's what it'll be when they face off next week. This is one as a Class B fan. A lot of Class B fans out there, I'm sure, are really anticipating this one. Castlewood been in the state tournament the last few years, highlighted by Brian Lowy, 6'9", going to University of Sioux Falls. And then the Cardinals got close to making the state tournament last year, fell 1 game short, but a lot of athletes on their team as well. Maverick LeBrun is going to South Dakota State to play some football. Javon Beckman has been scoring a ton of points. That's been a pretty potent 1-2 punch. So this is certainly one. You look on the calendar whenever you saw this one was coming up. you definitely circled and is going to get excited for. So that'll be definitely a fun one to keep tabs on.
And on the girls' side, there's a lot of good games to pick from. Last week, not quite as many, but this week, if you're in the Worlds Only, you're going to be able to check out some of the best.
Absolutely, the girls' Hanson Classic is this weekend in Mitchell. I'll be there providing coverage throughout, and the girls' Hanson Classic, and I know next week we got the boys' Hanson Classic, and we can talk about that next week. But the girls' Hanson Classic is this week, and just a lot of great matchups. And I guess two that which maybe kind of highlight a little bit. They're Centerville and Ethan, a couple of state tournament teams from last year. Centerville won the state championship. Ethan's been making a lot of state tournament appearances in recent years. So, and the Class B ranks, that's definitely a game that people want to keep an eye on and kind of see how that one plays out. And then the Class A ranks, Vermilion against Machbia Luta in the nightcap of the Hanson Classic. These teams played last year in the state tournament. Vermilion was able to pull that one out, and then of course made the run, won the state championship. Both these teams returned a lot off of those teams that played in the state tournament last year. So this will definitely be another one to keep an eye on. And kind of similar to the one we just talked about, it'll be a good kind of gauge to see where these teams kind of stack up. And then the Class A picture, it'll be fun to see how this one plays out and everything.
As always, a lot going on, and the place to go to keep up with basketball and hoops is your Twitter account and 605 Sports. Keep up the good work, Ryan. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks to Ryan Deal. Always a treat to talk to him. And he mentioned a few of those games he's looking forward to. Well, I've got a top 5 list of big games to look forward to over the next 7 days in both boys and girls action. We will start with boys action. Here, Spearfish is the team to watch here. They've got a doubleheader coming up Friday against Brandon Valley, Saturday against Harrisburg, 2 ranked teams. Now they're off to a 6-0 start, but this is the real test for Spearfish to see if they belong in the top 5. So far, they look like they do. They've got 4 different players who are averaging 9 points or more per game, led by their senior Dylan Doran. But Friday, they're going to take on Brandon Valley, who's quietly a 5-1 start. They're getting contributions from several guys on this team. They play such a good game in the backcourt. Defensively, they have been outstanding. Saturday, they take on Harrisburg. That's going to be a tough game for them. Harrisburg got that huge win against Mitchell last week, but had their hands full against Huron in their first game after that and stumbled a little bit, but that's not a bad loss to lose to Huron. They're going to try to go back and win a game against a good top 5 team in Spearfish. So those are the 5 and 4 games to look forward to this week in our top 5. In at number 3, the newly minted top team in AA, the Sioux Falls Lincoln Patriots. They get a huge test when they visit Huron. That's going to be a fun game. Huron coming back off of back-to-back program building wins. They took Harrisburg out in 69-64 in overtime as Blake Elwine led the team with 27 points in that win. And then Huron used defense to limit Mitchell as they came back on Tuesday night, got a huge win against one of the top teams, the defending champs in AA. They held Mitchell to 38 total points as they beat him 47-38. This will be their only matchup with Mitchell. They usually play him twice a year, but makes this game even a little more important for Huron to get that victory. So now Huron, after playing those 2 tough games, will host the number 1 team in AA as they take on Lincoln. Lincoln has gotten really 2 double-digit almost double-doubles from Sam DeGroat, but they've got 2 guys who can lead their team in scoring on any given night. Sam Erickson, the other one. They're both juniors, DeGroat and Erickson. And then they've got sophomore point guard who's had a tremendous season as well, and Brody Schaefer, as well as a deep team, some really big guys in the middle. I'm really looking forward to some of the matchups we're going to have in this game. You got Colton McNeil, Blake Elwine, Anderson Porish, who've had all great seasons for Huron and getting better. And then you got those players in Sam DeGroot, Sam Erickson, Brody Schaefer, and the rest. It's going to be fantastic viewing, so make sure you check out that game. The number 2 game on our list, Sioux Falls Christian just got done playing one of those top games. Now they've got another top game going against a team in Rapid City Christian, who will be playing in Sioux Falls on Saturday. And Rapid City Christian off to a 10-0 start They are continuing to improve each and every game, each and every season. You're getting great scoring from Benson Kiefer. You're getting great scoring from Simon Kiefer, Julius Frog on the inside, one of the better players. But they're going to have their hands full on a roster that is absolutely loaded in Sioux Falls Christian. Not only Griffin Goodberry, the future SDSU Jackrabbit, but his brother Cooper Goodberry having an awesome year. And then Brant Wassener, a young player who's really stepped up his game, and his brother Bennett, an incredible role player for them as well. And then you've got Britton Mulder, Jude Van Donkers, good guys who can step up and be great scorers, but they've really found their roles this year too. And Cole Snyder, maybe the best athlete on that entire team, in the mix for Sioux Falls Christian as well. And that's just a portion of what they can bring out and do. So a really big test. Rapid City Christian has passed every test this year, including a big win over St. Thomas More earlier last week. Just got done playing them in the King Center and showing what they can do. And now another huge test as they travel across the state and play unbeaten #1 team. So that's definitely one that you got to put on the calendar. The top game to look forward to in the next 7 days, well, it's 7 days from now, and it's going to be #1 versus #2 in Class B. Ryan Deal talked a little bit about this. I'm going to go in a little more in depth as Castlewood takes on St. Mary's, and St. Mary's really hungry after missing out on the state tournament last year, bringing back almost the exact same team this year, including their two best scorers, Maverick LeBrun and Trevin Beckman, who both can take the ball and score if they need to. It's hard to guard one or the other or to give help to one or the other because they're going to find each other. And, St. Mary's has now finished second in the DVC each of the last 3 seasons. This game would go a long way to getting a DVC title if they can take out a team like Castlewood. They're often running with some of the best defense that they've had in the last couple of years in St. Mary's, but they're going to have their hands full with one of the best posts in the state regardless of class. And Brian Lowy, he is a giant. He is an automatic mismatch for almost anybody who goes against him, and that's going to be the unique matchup here in this game. Jameson Kessler has done a great job as well. It's not just Lowy for Castlewood. And after Castlewood lost to Hamlin earlier and got shook up, they have come back really, really strong with impressive back-to-back wins, not only against Dual, giving Dual their first loss of the year, but then taking out a really good Class A Clark Willow Lake team. So watch out. This one's going to be a lot of fun, and I have a feeling may not be the last time these two teams play. Right now they feel like the two best teams in Class B. Let's take a look at our top 5 games in girls basketball over the next 7 days. And similar to the boys, we'll start with Spearfish. Spearfish in the top 5 right now. Yes, they have lost a couple of games, but they return a lot of talent from last year's team that made it to the state tournament and feel like they can push it in even further. Huge test for them as they take on Brandon Valley on Friday night. There's going to be a lot of same players on the court. When they played each other last year in the state tournament, Brandon Valley got the win in the state tournament, 58-42. I expect this one to be competitive, more competitive than that one. For Spearfish, you've got players like Josie Dana, Maya Cookton, and Kate Scharf, who are all key players from last year's team who are back this year. And I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, Maya, but I think it's Kakuchin. Kachukin. All right, well, that's the tough part about having to do people's names on here without checking on pronunciation. But 3 excellent players for Spearfish and 3 excellent players for Brandon Valley as well. Ava Kellenberger and Gracie Salter have taken a huge step up this year to help out Olivia Paget, who is a star in AA, and doesn't necessarily do the starring with scoring all the time. She leads with heart and IQ and just the way she gets her teammates involved. So 3 really good players on both sides. It might come down to who has the most depth and who plays the best defense in this one, but that's going to be a fun one. How about Maipia Luta? They have a huge week coming up, but the number 4 game on this list is going to be Maipia Luta, who has a chance to go up against Spearfish. So after playing in the Hanson Classic against one of the best teams in the state, they're going to have to travel to Spearfish and play one of the top 5 teams in AA. So it's going to be a huge week for them. Ashlyn Carlo Blunt, we talked about her already, averaging 29 points per game this year. But it's not just her. Jodine Big Hunter has had a good year. Big Crow Hunter, has had a big game this year, and Maya Mills, too, has been really key. That's a really good team that's averaging a 40-plus point win every game, every time they step on the court. So that's going to be a unique cross-class matchup with Spearfish next week. But the 3-1 matchups are all Hanson Classic battles. And again, we talked about some of these battles with Ryan Deal coming up, but our number 3 game we didn't have a chance to touch on yet. Let's talk about that one. Parkston takes on Lyman. Right now, Parkston sitting at number 2 in the polls. Lyman sitting at number 3, but very little in between these two teams. And Parkston, moving down from Class A, has gotten off to a great start in Class B this year. But I think the key in this game is the backcourt is phenomenal on both sides. Parkston, led by Lauren Zebart, one of the best and quickest guards in Class B, going up against Jordan Scott, younger for Lyman. People might not know as much about her, but she's off to a great start as well. And so the ball handling is great on both sides. I think the one difference we have in this game is Lyman has the only 6-footer in this game, and that's Max Scott, the future Augustana college basketball player who is having an outstanding career with Lyman. But if she can take advantage of her height advantage, her quickness, athleticism, I really think that's one of the keys to the game. And obviously, Parkston's going to be ready for that. They've got plenty of players who can play against 6-footers. They've done it all year. But to me, that's the key to the game. Parkston has started out 9-0 this year. They've had some dominant wins. Lyman, they've only played 6 games. They've had a game canceled already, but they've been impressive as well. They've got wins against Sanborn Central Woonsocket, Bennett County, a close win against a good team there, and Kadoka, their most recent good game. On Tuesday night, they knocked Kadoka from the unbeaten ranks. So this is going to be a great test. I can't wait to see these two teams and see where they're at the Hanson Classic, and maybe again, those two teams will see each other later in the season. The next is the top team in Class B, Centerville. This will be the next game at the Hanson Classic following the Lyman-Parkston game. And we've got number 4, Ethan, challenging that top team in Class B. And it is going to be a challenge. Centerville, they're the defending champs. They've looked the part, a 10-0 start. Emma Marshall, and Althea Gus have been awesome. And then on the other side, you've got Ethan, who is a little better than some people thought. Did have that early loss to Andy Central, Dakota Christian, but have been playing lights out. And of course, every Tom Young team is going to be playing great defense. They are playing great defense as well. 32.9 points per game given up. Centerville also plays great defense. I expect a low-scoring one here with the stars, Marissa Storm and Taziah Hawkins, making a big difference for Ethan. And then we already talked about Althea Gus and Emma Marshall, 2 of the outstanding players for Centerville. But those other key players, those other starters who are not named, those 4 that we just talked about, are going to be huge as well. If one of those players can step up, I think they have an advantage in this game. Then the nightcap, Makpialuta and Vermilion. So Makpialuta has scheduled a tougher schedule this year, and it starts right here at the Hanson Classic as they take on Vermilion, the defending champs from last year, who have 3 of their top players back from that championship team in Casey Hansen, Taylor Roovers, and Brooke Jensen. But I'll tell you what, Makpialuta is excited to get this challenge. I don't care how they do, win or loss. This is going to be a great teaching moment for this team against a really solid Vermilion team. Right now, both those two teams getting votes as the number 1 team in Class A. And after this one, I think we're going to eliminate one of those 2 teams from getting those top votes. But it'll be a lot of fun to see some high-flying basketball at the Corn Palace to cap the night off and cap a wonderful event that is the Hanson Classic. Just a couple more notes on last week's games. We're not going to go through the entire rankings like we usually do. Actually, we will. Well, that's a look at this week's show. Next week, we'll have more, some highlights from the Hanson Classic. We'll also have a preview of the Boys Hanson Classic, let alone other great matchups that we have across the state each and every week. Thank you for joining me right here on Inside the 605. You make this show special. We'll see you next week.